Don't speak what you don't understand. The truth is not in your command. Don't shout about what you think is fake. The decision isn't yours to make. Don't lie about the way things are. Tall tales will take you very far. Don't scoff when they say it's the end. In this life, you know you can't pretend. The days pass by, they've set in stone, but it's not too late now.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. It is June 5th, Friday. It is just after 5 p.m. Pardon my voice because I have bronchitis, and I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet today. So in talking about some of our updates for the week, first, I do want to thank you all because for the month of May, we did hit our $100,000 monthly goal that we had increased to. So I want to thank you for meeting all of that. And we started back up again this week with the new benchmark for I'll have to post the thermometer up. Are you not hearing me? Oh, we just lost Arthur. Daniel, if you can get Arthur to come back on. So we will also be starting our new month for the month of June, and that is that for this first week already, we've hit $14,000. So thank you for all of that. And I appreciate all of you supporting this cause. We did put up the video that shows where the AFL-CIO and the United Federation of Teachers has been lobbying against our legislation for the last 5 months in the state and the city. It's a short little video. And if you got our email today, it is in there as well. If you did not get our email and you're supposed to be, please check spam or junk. It went out about an hour or two ago, depending which list you were on. And we've also started sending text messages as a reminder that we're here to those people who have not been donating and are in our email database and have been receiving our newsletters. So we wanted to also remind you that it's time, that we've been very successful for the last 5 years in representing you, and that we could really use a little bit of extra effort going forward. Letting you know that going forward with our litigation, there is nothing yet to update you on. We are still in the final stages of the copay case, and we need to make sure that you have all of your copay information in a folder ready to go as soon as you will start to receive that information. But trust me, when it is final, you will hear us because we will break in and do a live announcement. And we will probably also have a press conference on that. And hopefully, if you're in New York City, invite all of you to be with us. So we will be letting you know about that soon. And I think that's really about all I have to ask you for. Also, one more thing. Many of you have been emailing us, asking us about a letter that you received about Emblem Health. And we had talked about this briefly in one of our videos, our Friday Lives about 2 weeks ago. And it also said that if you were looking for doctors that were in the mental health area, behavioral health, and you could not find a doctor within the pre-65, this is the active worker pre-65 plan under GHI, that you had to pay out of pocket. If you had any expenses like that, you would have most likely received a letter from Emblem Health about that. I put that information in our newsletter as well, just in case you didn't get the official letter from Emblem. At least you have the website to go ahead and file that claim. Emblem was running what is known as a ghost network, and this means that they had published doctors' names, but those doctors were not accepting new patients, or those doctors were no longer accepting patients, and that left you with no providers to secure. So that created a ghost network. And then if you needed the care still, like many of you did, that is what caused you to end up having to pay out of pocket. Several employees and retirees did sue, and they won that case. And therefore, now you have a restitution website to go to. Yes, I know my voice absolutely sucks, and I'm so sorry. The status of the council bill. So thank you, Gerald, for asking. The council bill we are hoping to have reintroduced. We were told somewhere between June, July, and we're right there. So I wanted to make sure that you guys know that that is the bill that we have left right now to focus on, is the city council bill. And as soon as we hear from Councilmember Marte, we will be having a rally at City Hall. For the state bill, this, because of the budget had been taken so long, and it should have been done months ago, their legislative season ended today, which means our bill will go nowhere. And also because there's not an assembly bill because of the budget. So what we're asking you guys to do is, if you want, there's no pressure to do this because it's not going to happen in the state this year, is that you can continue to ask your senators to sign on to the Senate bill. But the bill isn't going to go anyplace because it doesn't have an assembly companion and the legislative season is over, which is why we're going to focus our efforts going forward right now on the city council legislation. Okay. But there's been a lot of support. And if you saw today, Senator Eric Botcher, who was former city council member, signed on to the legislation today as well. And there was a lot. We're probably up to about 35 sponsors on this bill. So just bear with us with this, because the state has received many complaints because their session has ended so soon and they didn't get a chance to do many bills. But we are at least blessed with the fact that we have the city council bill that we could work on up until December. So we're going to work on that going forward. As soon as Council Member Marte lets me know when this bill will be introduced, and he did say between June and July. I know you can hear my lungs, and I'm so sorry, that he will let us know, and we will have a rally to pump everybody up. And I know Michelle's really looking excited to get everybody back on the street. So for now, since I want to reduce my talking, I'm going to bring two gentlemen up who are like my brothers, and they're going to talk about something today that regarding another piece of legislation that actually did get past both houses. I'm going to bring on Daniel Alicea, and I'm going to bring on Arthur Goldstein. Most of you know them from our socials and from their socials. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you, Marianne.
Thank you, Mariana.
You're welcome. So what we're going to talk about today is this, Billy, you guys have been posting a link to talk about Senate 9577A and Assembly 10835 version A. And this bill's original intent was to stop bad actors like a Freedom Foundation, anti-union organization, from impersonating your union. And so from what I can tell from the literature is that they were mailing to municipal employees' homes documents or flyers, postcards, making it in some cases appear that they might have been your union, whichever union that was, and trying to get you. And I've heard this across, not just across from NICE at UFT, but also from DC 37 as well, to say, hey, you can opt out of paying your dues to the union, just sign this and send this back into your union.
Yep.
And made it appear like their union. The concern that many people had, including us when we looked at this, as well as the both of you, was that this legislation could potentially be weaponized in a way that might be used against anyone dissenting from the union, that maybe you don't agree with the House of Mulgrew or the House of Garrido, and that this law could potentially be used against you. So let's start with that conversation.
We have a little bit of experience with this. Unfortunately, I think I might have had I'll go first because I think it happened to me before it happened to Daniel. although it happened to Daniel a little more than it happened to me.
Sure.
I used to have a blog called NYC Educator. Its domain was nyceducator.com. And I wrote every day, and I frequently parodied Michael Mulgrew, because he's a preposterous figure, and, how could I not? And it came pretty easily to me. One day I got a letter from, I don't remember the names of the lawyers.
Fulbright and Norton, they're based out of California.
Well, you read the letter more closely than I did, I can tell you. I got it at my NYC Educator email, which I almost never used. So I didn't even see it until two weeks after it arrived. And it said I was impersonating Michael Mulgrew. It didn't say I was parodying him. It said I was impersonating him. And you would have to be an idiot to think that Michael Mulgrew would write the things I was writing. You would have to be an idiot. But on the other hand, UFT hires people absolutely for loyalty, not competence. So, maybe some of them might have believed it. I don't know. But it was absurd. And I didn't answer the letter. And I posted it on nyceducator.com. And along with, I ridiculed it. They said I copied his electronic signature, and I did omit that from the blog they objected to, but I left the rest of it extant. Anyway, about 2 weeks later, nyceducator.com was blocked from my Blogger blog. I could no longer use it. And I believe the day I noticed that, I got on Substack, where I now have thousands of followers and many more people read me than did on my old blog. So I guess I should send Michael Mulgrew a thank you note. Thank you, Michael. But he wants to be able to come after me for exercising my First Amendment rights. And parody is guaranteed by the First Amendment, satire. So I object to this bill. He'll use it the wrong way.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on that. And as Marianne said, none of us are pro fraud here.
Yeah.
Especially malicious, deceptive practices that we're seeing out of the opt-out movement from people like the Freedom Foundation and others. However, because in the last 3 or 4 years, we have seen the United Federation of Teachers leadership make some of the same claims that supporters are making for this legislation. Here are some of the things that they're saying. That this legislation is necessary because there are folks that are impersonating fraudulently the union. They're saying that if anyone does so, then they can go to the AG. The AG will get special powers under this. This is not a type of protection you'll see for any other organization or corporation in New York State. And then the AG would engage in an investigation, would probably file for subpoenas. There would be civil penalties as well. And so besides the fact that this gives some extraordinary powers to a political position like the Attorney General here in New York State, which is an elected position, and we know that unions many times endorse candidates. And again, this is not about the AG. It's really about that this law and some of the language that supporters are using is very similar to the cease and desist letter that Arthur received. Things that supporters are saying is that you cannot impersonate a union. You can't impersonate a union representative. That anyone that uses, let's say, identifying marks like UFT. And there are a lot of reform caucuses within the United Federation of Teachers that use hyphenated identifiers that say something like a better contract -UFT or retiree advocate -UFT. That anyone that does that, we've seen in these cease and desist letters, that somehow you are impersonating the union. You are creating you are creating confusion in some of the language that you see in these cease and desist letters. This is the same language that you're hearing out of NICET, for example, for why we need to pass this legislation, that somehow anyone that does this is creating confusion. They also use language such as you're interfering with their legal representation as an employee organization. And I think even NYC Retirees has heard some of this, that somehow that NYC Retirees is usurping the authority to represent retirees who really don't have a union in the classic sense. They may belong to the retiree chapter of the United Federation of Teachers, but they do not have, retirees don't have a bargaining unit under New York state law. And so, some of the current concerns we have is that a lot of what we've seen with the legal actions coming out of the United Federation of Teachers is very similar to some of the things that this law could potentially weaponize against any dissenting voices internally within unions. And so Arthur's example is a real life example of, here's Arthur making parody of Michael Mulgrew, and as the law is stated, he's impersonating a union representative. So all Michael Mulgrew then has to do is pick up the phone, call up Letitia James, and say, "Hey, I don't like what Arthur did." And so he's impersonating, he's fraudulently doing this, he's pretending to be me. There will be a full-blown investigation, subpoenas. We all know that discovery comes with that, and all the other things that come with that, including legal fees. And those of us that are dissenting voices within our unions, we don't have the type of money that a United Federation of Teachers has, or a NICET or a DC 37. And I know that NYC Retirees has done a phenomenal job of crowdfunding, but that's really difficult when you got to go to court and say, you know what, no, I'm not impersonating, I'm exercising my First Amendment right. And so even so, we feel like if this legislation does go through, it's going to have a chilling effect, because most folks cannot deal with this type of investigation or the legal fees that come with it. And I can give a couple of other real life examples. At around the same time that Arthur got his cease and desist letter, it was about the time of contract negotiations. And so a reform caucus called More UFT put out a slide deck that was very similar to the slide deck that the UFT representatives were putting out, but they were asking for some more tangible things. And some of it was, working conditions, nothing really politically or ideological in that slide deck. And so they were really trying to get at least their folks and inside of their chapters to really push for a fair contract. They had put the UFT logo in this slide deck. They had taken some of the language from the original slide deck, but then they added a few other things, and they put, of course, their own branding on it. And lo and behold, they got a cease and desist from the same law firm saying that, they need to cease and desist, that they were impersonating the union, that they were interfering with representation, and so they had to bring it down. Just like Arthur, we ignored it, or at least I know that More UFT ignored it. And so that's just another example of, here are people that are part of a union, Arthur, reform caucuses like More UFT, and here they are identifying themselves. These are just descriptor terms. Say, hey, we're part of this union. We should be able to describe ourselves as part of this union. A more probably more prominent example happened just last year when ABC UFT, the caucus that not the caucus, but the group, the community that I'm a part of, the slate that ran against Mulgrew and got the most votes. When we originally started, we started with a domain called uftmembers.org. And so what we really wanted to do is start a member-driven movement. And so we felt like the name really encompassed that description. We felt like really encompassed what we were about. We were UFT members pushing for a better contract. And so I had registered the domain, and then the slate started organizing around that domain. And before you know it, we got a cease and desist letter saying that the domain was against trademark law. and that we needed to bring it down. One of the first people I called was Arthur and Marianne, and I said, here they are again, weaponizing and saying that we're impersonating fraudulently, and now they're saying that we're violating trademark law. And what should I do? And the suggestion was, hey, let's put a disclaimer on the site and say, you know what, we are simply a slate. We are not officially representing the UFT, but we are UFT members that are concerned about the direction of our union. Even so, we got a second cease and desist. And then finally, I've got a letter from a international and national authority that handles domains on the internet. And it's an official authority. Whatever happens there is legal and it's binding. And this law firm, Fulbright and Norton, which had been hired by the UFT with our dues money out of California, was filing litigation through an arbitrator, saying that we needed to bring it down and that the domain needed to be theirs, essentially theirs. And what we were doing was violating trademark law. And so I did not know what to do. We're in the middle of a campaign for the election, and there was only maybe 48 hours left. And I didn't have a lawyer. I didn't have any money. And so I said, you know what? I'm still going to fight this. I believe in my First Amendment rights. We are simply describing who we are. There are other groups that are using union names or even company names. I know that FDNY or even DC37 has something like DC37retirees.org. Those are simply descriptor terms. And so I decided pro se that I would defend myself to this panel of arbitrators. It wound up just being one arbitrator. Went back and forth with this, with, I guess, legal briefs. And I'm thankful for ChatGPT in some ways. But I was able to go toe-to-toe with this big commercial company union that the UFT had hired to bring down this site. And the arbitrator ruled in favor of myself and the slate. And so we were able to keep that domain. So all of that to say that we feel that this legislation is well-intentioned. I'm understanding that it's coming out of CSEA and PEF, but NYSET has signed on. And as much as we don't want to see fraudulent impersonation of our unions because of what we're seeing with the opt-out movement, all we're asking for, and if you go to unionvoices.educators.nyc, all we are asking for is an amendment that provides safe harbor for our protected speech, which is ours under the United States Constitution. It is a First Amendment right. And at the same time, that recognizes that internal dissent within unions, whether they be reform unions, caucuses, whether they be member advocate organizations like NYC retirees, that we are not going to be prosecuted and persecuted under this legislation. Now, this legislation has also been tried in Oregon. In Oregon, they passed it. Before it was put into effect, the Freedom Foundation stepped in and was saying that this was also an issue of protected speech. They filed a lawsuit in federal court. The judge said that they did not have any standing because it wasn't affecting them. There was no lawsuit against them, and so at that moment they could not file a lawsuit based on protected speech. But I know that they're appealing. Now, again, we have nothing to do and don't really care for their agenda at all. I want to laud and I want to praise NYC retirees that they have drawn a line between political action contributions and dues. We do not believe as unionists that we should be pulling our dues, but political action contributions are entirely different if we don't agree with the agenda or if we see that that union is actually lobbying against our interests. Hey, if that's what you've decided to do, I know I pulled my coat money just recently myself, but
and apparently Randy Weingarten agrees with me too.
Yes, she said as much, right? And I love that you posted that, Marianne. But again, we are asking you, listener tonight, to please visit unionvoices.educators.nyc. We have set up an action center there. Now that this legislation has passed, because we've already had conversations, Arthur and I had conversations with Senator Jessica Ramos' office. We sat and talked with their legislative director. Arthur, I know, has had conversations, and I have also had conversations with the Assembly woman, Judy Griffin, who also co-sponsored this legislation on the Assembly side. It has passed, but the fight is not over. There's still an opportunity for us to stop, or not to stop this legislation, but at least to make sure that there is embedded in this legislation safe harbor for dissenting voices within unions, that protects free speech, whether it be parody, satire, or just us describing ourselves for what we are. I am a UFT member, and I shouldn't have to worry about my union coming after me and suing me in court, or in an arbitration, right? And saying that I can't describe myself as a UFT member. I was able to argue that's nominative use and descriptive use, and as long as we're not doing anything that's commercial, non-commercial commentary is legal under federal law. And so all we're asking is that NYC retirees help us fight this potential wave that can come against us, against all groups that are speaking out, especially in this day and age where we're seeing entrenched leadership within unions, that they will do anything, even against members. So we're just asking you to sign the petition at unionvoices.educators.nyc, to send the emails. You're able to send an email there to the legislative office. You're also able to send an email to Jessica Ramos and to Judy Griffin. They can also put in what we are called chapter amendments. So even when something is passed legislatively, there's still an opportunity to put in what they call chapter amendments, and the legal counsel for the governor or the key sponsors can still say, hey, we've got to fix a few things with the legislation, and we're asking for safe harbor, a safe harbor clause that protects union dissent, that protects union democracy and free speech.
That was great that Randy came to you and said it's okay to pull your voluntary COPE contributions. So generous of her to make that allowance. I pulled my COPE contributions right after they sent me the letter. I thought, why am I paying lawyers to threaten me? That was the last straw for me. But in Randy's defense, I mean, I'm not a fanboy of Randy Weingarten, but nonetheless, Randy speaks to everybody. If I see her on the street, she'll speak to me. If I send her an email, she'll answer me. And I don't think Randy would be pushing this legislation, because what Randy understands and what I understand and what I know you, Marianne, understand, excuse me, is that with leadership comes, Spider-Man says, great responsibility. But I'm going to say, with leadership comes abundant criticism from all sides. I was chapter leader of almost 400 people. And somebody was always mad at me. Sometimes it was my fault. Sometimes it wasn't, but always. And I really had to get used to it. It was, it can shake you up. I was used to it from kids, as I'm sure Daniel is. I wasn't used to it from adults. But in our school, there's a JROTC military program, and one of the sergeants said, you have to live with it. You have to face it. He said, otherwise, the bastards win. And it just went off in my head that, yeah, this is part of the job. And Michael Mulgrew hasn't registered that. He's not on social media. He doesn't answer critical email. He'll get up at the DA and tell all of us to go on Twitter, but he won't do it himself. He'll send out, little videos of himself, but he won't really answer questions. He takes questions 10 minutes a month at the DA, and he picks on people. You can tell. Oh, Michael, that's so wonderful, that thing you did. Michael, you look so good. Michael, you're so handsome. Michael, you're so charming. Thank you, thank you. And we listen to this for 10 minutes, and anybody with a real question almost never gets called on.
So they don't do like what we do.
No,
Never.
They need to grow up. They need to grow up and realize that criticism is part of it. You have to take the criticism. And instead, they're always, ever since I became active in the union in 2005, they're always telling you one way or another, sit down and shut up. That
If
is
not-
their message. And
Right,
now
if not,
they
they'll
want
come
to
after you.
legalize it.
Yeah.
To the
And
question,
so I saw some comments. I see some folks have already visited our site, unionvoices.educators.nyc. At that action center, you can sign the petition. You can also send out emails to the legislative office, to the key sponsors, or to every legislator. We are not using Action Network. I was able to do some coding and get this done. This page is hosted by us at educators.nyc. It's out of my pocket. And so we are able, so far, I think we've sent over 30,000 emails to legislators, and now including the governor and her legislative affairs office. But please log in there today, send your emails today. There's a link there also to go to the online form for the governor. But on Monday, please start calling the governor's office. And when you call the governor's office, ask to be transferred to the Office of Legislative Affairs, and then tell them your piece. We've even left a script there that you can use as you're calling up some of these offices. And give Jessica Ramos a call, her office as well. I'm sure she would love to hear from you. And also call up Judy Griffin's office as well. I'm sure these co-sponsors would love to hear from us. Right now, I feel like they're making a calculated risk here. They've decided to just kind of leave this in Kathy Hochul's lap. They know that she's up for election, and she's going to have to decide whether she's going to either sign on to this bill, she's either going to veto it, or allow for an amendment, which is what we would really love to see. We do not believe in fraud, and so we think that there's some good standing in this law, but we do need a clause that says we need safe harbor for protected speech.
Yeah, because you don't want it weaponized to be used against pure union dissent, which should be protected. But if it can be weaponized to do that, that would definitely be a problem. But
we've seen it.
We all three of us stand against any of those anti-union movements. We're not looking to do that. We don't impersonate our unions. But we do know that there are some thin-skinned union leaders out there that will have targeted you, and both of you actually, and me and our organizations, each individually, for standing up for our rights or defending ourselves, or even just, mocking some of what goes on in the day-to-day, which is all protected under the Constitution of the United States, that you have this free speech. However, in certain circles, they like to deny that exists within the union world, which it does not. But to see that this could potentially be weaponized would be a problem, even though, as the senator did say in her speech with the bill, that was not the intent. However, it can still be technically used in that manner, and that would surely, make means for concerns for all of us.
Yeah, there's I'm going to paraphrase here. I'm a child of a pastor, of a preacher. There's a verse in what many in the Hebrew Bible, in the Torah, that speaks about there came up a Pharaoh who did not know Joseph, right? And the whole idea of that verse was, right now there's well-intentioned feelings about this law. Jessica Ramos says, hey, we're only going after the opt-out movement. But all it takes is an AG that might be politically in bed with a union leader. And this can be easily weaponized against dissenting voices. All it takes is a phone call saying, hey, we feel like they're interfering with our representation. They're creating confusion. They're fraudulently speaking for the union. And that's all it takes. And before you know it, it's going to have a ripple effect. And the little guy, us, is unable to keep up with the monies that these lawyers have on the union side. And so I think this is an opportunity for us to mobilize together and really let union leadership know again that, you know what, our unions are our unions. They keep on speaking without us, but we need to start saying, look, nothing about us should be without us, right? So we need them to know that we are the union. And so we should be able to identify as union members. We should be able to identify with our unions on literature, on the internet, in our communications. And there should not be legal repercussions. We should not be looking over our shoulders.
No, you're 100% right on that. There's got to be a way that that you're able to still dissent with the House, whatever House that is, and not be in fear of retribution. And we know that that's a common theme. And you're right about the financial part, because if they can silence you and they know that it will be hard, which we all know it's hard to find attorneys that want to sue a union. Not that they want to, but or have a client that wants to sue their union to protect their rights. They don't want to go up against the union out of fear that it would look like you're anti-union. No, you're just anti being screwed by someone who's abusing its power. And then the financial aspect, because then that's requiring thousands of dollars, and could be tens of thousands of dollars to defend yourself from an aggressor, which you shouldn't have to do. So
no one knows this better than New York City retirees.
Yeah.
when we've worked hard for our benefits, and you strip away healthcare, and we've seen the last 3 years just having to fight in the courts. That it really is quite a challenge. And I know Marianne is pushing hard. She is a champion among many champions here in New York City retirees. But we're just asking that right now we can nip this before it becomes an issue. Again, we believe it's well-intentioned. We believe it's really geared at the opt-out movement. But because of the way it's worded in practice, and we've already seen it weaponized against us, that these ideas of impersonating the union, creating confusion, interfering with union representation, we've already had to deal with legal actions.
Right. Yep, I agree with you. We've been putting the link to your website and both of your blogs in the chat as well, so that they can find you as well as find this petition. There was a question by William. He wanted to know, should people living outside New York State sign the petition?
100% sign it. Let's send a message to Albany that, you know what, folks are unified under protected speech, union democracy, and that, again, our unions are our unions. They do not belong to some of the entrenched leadership that has forgotten who we are.
And I think that's a really good message, because it is the leadership that made some of these poor decisions, not the membership. When we say, we tell people, if you disagree with how your COPE money is being used, your COPE is your committee for your political action, then go ahead and cancel your COPE. We don't tell them to cancel dues, because we support the union movement. We need good, strong unions, we say, good, strong labor leaders, we say. What we don't need is corrupt labor, because then corrupt labor, of course, corrupts the entire labor movement and gives us all a bad name and feeds into, the other side that's trying to take the unions down. But if there wasn't this, we were having this discussion today about how like your Mulgrews and Garridos and Weingartens recently, maligning our organization's reaction to things. And I said, well, they have a very short memory because our reaction is to their action. We would not have had any reason to exist. You would never have heard Mulgrew or Garrido or Weingarten cross my lips if they didn't try to kill me and 250,000 people.
It's
or
gaslighting.
take away, right?
Yep.
I would have been in my backyard planting gardenias and tulips and playing with my dogs in my Volkswagen. And I would never have had any reason to come on here on a Friday night or a Monday and talk about all the horrible things that they were doing to us and fundraise and make videos and TikToks and all these other crazy shit things that I do. But that's the whole reason, is that they're trying to condemn our reaction to what they did to us or continue to do to us. And that's the wrong thing. We should be able to stand up and speak out against disagreement. You remember that video from 1965 of Victor Gottbaum from that video, the movie documentarian from California.
Unions are born in dissent.
Unions were born in dissent. And he said he doesn't want to stay around too long as to get encrusted. And I believe the Mulgrews and the Garridos today are encrusted, that they've become so much part of the mainstream of their own ideology for self-preservation that they forgot what the movement is for. And it is for the people. The people are the union. We are the movement. And I think we're starting to see cracks in that, even with the young people in the DC 37 movement, because we have a large progressive group in district council that does not support wholeheartedly the House of Mulgrew. And these would be the people that want to see more progressive changes in the union movement that benefit the people, benefit their wages, not these 3%, caca things that they keep seeing and seeing that frustration. You see, even lately with the paras, I see Migda goes, bingo, Marian. This bothered me to see this week where Mulgrew did a press release on the bonus that the teachers would get in certain schools in certain circumstances, up to $10,000.
Very few will get it.
For all of those schools that did not meet the class size mandate that was put into law. But yet that bonus wasn't something that bonus could have been something given to the paras and would have been so much more meaningful. Yeah. And I think the priorities are misaligned in that. So I feel you, Migda. I know I saw that and it bothered me when it was framed that way. And I kind of figured that that's what you were feeling the same thing.
You're talking about the class size bonuses now?
Yes. The proposed ones. Apparently there's an agreement that says as much, but I know it's only going to apply to about 120 schools and only a few teachers within those schools.
The last I heard, for high schools at least, it only applied to the specialized high schools. Now, there's only a handful of them in the city. And I work still at Francis Lewis High School. We are the most overcrowded school in the whole city, have been for years and years. And our teachers are all going to have 34 kids, and they're going to get nothing. And even if they did get something, it's not a positive thing to have teachers saying, oh, I want the big classes so I can make more money. This really hurts students. Sorry, all you guys who want to make more money. You're probably not going to get it anyway.
Well, I think, too, it might have been more equitable if they didn't exclude the paras from that. So you give the teachers the bonus, but you also give the paras who are also in the classroom that's oversized the same bonus.
Yeah. Well, paras technically, not all paras, but a lot
they
of
could be in an ICT class.
One student.
Yeah.
And, they say they love the paras, but they really don't. I mean, they've been promising them that $10,000 forever, and no para has it. And even if they get it, it's, conditional. They might not get it again, and it won't go toward their pension. And we know that Mulgrew had $450 million with which he could have given them a pensionable raise. And he didn't. And the only reason he changed his mind was because 3 out of 4 people voted for the slate that Migda Rodriguez ran on,
Fixed parapay.
fixed parapay, and then first chance he got, he fired her. She was the only para rep working for the UFT who the paras chose, and Michael Mulgrew, the little snowflake that he is, he fired her. It's despicable.
Yeah, it goes back to and to use Marianne's word, this encrusted, entrenched leadership that is not only entitled, but again, their only ideology is self-preservation. And so whatever they do, whether it be legal action or just trying to circumvent collective bargaining through legislation, really, that's really where that bonus money should be coming from collective bargaining, and higher raises and other things that paras need, including Lodi, which has to do with payments that they get if they're injured on the job. All of that should be really done the traditional way through collective bargaining. But it goes back to also what you say, Arthur, that all this encrusted, entrenched leadership wants to do is have us sit down and shut up, right?
Yeah.
And so I've heard some people say, well, why don't you just give up the domain, give up the fight? UFT members, maybe there is a case that somehow this is a trademark. By the way, if you go check out the trademark search on the federal site, UFT does not have a trademark on its name, although under law, now that they've used it for so long, they do have trademark under precedent, right? But here's the thing. Even if we gave up this fight on uftmembers.org, in the last cease and desist letter that we got under our slate, UFT members and a better contract, they were telling us not only do we have to give up the website, but we can no longer say that as UFT members, we are fighting for a better contract. Let me say that again. They had problems, not just with us identifying as UFT members, but they said that we were interfering with their authority to represent as an employee organization. And the minute that we start calling for a better contract, we are somehow stepping on their toes. And so they were telling us to cease and desist, saying that we were calling for a better contract.
Because they want a worse one. Let me talk about paraprofessionals for a moment. Daniel,
we need a better contract.
Well, if we want a better contract, and let's talk about New York State. Daniel is a working teacher. He has tenure. They can't just say, I don't like your haircut, Daniel, you're fired. But yeah. Well, paraprofessionals are not tenured. Now, secretaries are tenured. They're technically called pedagogues. I don't begrudge secretaries' tenure. I think they should have tenure. But paraprofessionals work directly with kids every day, one-on-one. That's a really hard thing. I've taught full-time 39 years. I can't imagine doing that job, being with one kid every period but, lunch. But yet they do it. And
Arthur, just for a moment, and in D75, they're doing things like changing diapers, feeding.
Right, I'm aware. We have that in our building. Paras should have a route to tenure. Maybe they could take classes, maybe they get a 2-year degree, maybe they could do something, but there should be a road for them to have tenure. I was chapter leader for 12 years. I have seen paras sit next to me and the guy says, you're fired. That's it, you're fired. I'm not going to comment on why, but I will tell you that once one of those paras who was fired, it was an elderly woman who they had paired with a blind student who outmaneuvered her. She couldn't walk fast enough to keep up with this student. They fired her. And 2 weeks later, I got a call in my classroom from a secretary saying her family is on the phone. She just had a stroke and she no longer has health insurance. They want to know if they should put her in the ambulance. And I'm in front of my class and I don't know what to say. And the secretary said, yes, You should put her in the secretary took an executive decision, and that parrot died. And I have to think that that stroke was related to this. You know, if there was a process that may not have happened to her. I'm not sure whether she deserved to be fired. I didn't know a lot about it. I mean, we were going to fight for her, but of course she died and there was nobody to fight for.
That's hard.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm off topic. Forgive me.
No, I think it goes back to, we are seeing union leadership that has abdicated their primary responsibilities, right? And so they have forgotten that they are supposed to be, we entrust them, we vote for them. They have been entrusted with a fiduciary responsibility to
Right.
represent us, not through concessionary bargaining and givebacks, but to fight for our rights, to protect our working conditions, to make sure that we have the best quality health care, and to make sure that our pensions are safe. And so all of that together, I think, is all part of this discussion that we've been having, that's been ongoing. And again, Marianne, you have been a champion of this. People don't understand that when history is written about 2020 and the 2020s in labor history, the person that's going to be standing on top is Marianne Pizzatola and New York City retirees. I do not believe in the last 20, even 25 years, there has been a labor movement like we've seen with New York City retirees and the leadership of Marianne.
Well, thanks,
Yeah,
guys.
we know you're out there on the street. We know you're in the courts. We know you are fighting for us. We know
Yes.
it. All of us, everybody watching knows this. We don't have the same feeling about our union leaders who get up and say whatever. I mean, I was aligned with Unity for about 3 years after I got kicked out of a union caucus. Daniel knows about this. And I at first, when they brought up Medicare Advantage, I thought, okay, you know, it's with GHI, and I had cancer with GHI, and they were good to me. I thought, okay, I'll try it. Then as I read more and more, and then they dumped GHI for Aetna, which used to sell slave insurance, I started to say, no, this is not good. And Mike Sill, no, it was actually Leroy Barr contacted me to go to this meeting with Mike Sill and two women who I really liked and one who I didn't know. And they wanted to persuade me to get back on board. And Mike Sill said, yeah, you know, here in New Jersey, where I live, it's really hard to find doctors with GHI. And I thought that was an argument against the purpose, but these UFT people came, 3 of them, and me on Zoom, and none of them had an argument on why I should be back with them. None of them came with an argument. They just thought they'd look at me and I'd be persuaded. I don't know. And this is why every time we get a contract, it doesn't meet the cost of living. And this is why we get these preposterous deals and this outlandish legislation to get us to sit down and shut up, because they cannot face us. They won't debate us.
I don't think they want to address the truth, and they resent the fact that we literally hold like a mag spotlight on all of their indiscretions, which they don't like. Right? I mean, I literally still have a debunking bullshit page on our website that mostly highlights UFT bullshit. Yeah. And I shouldn't have that.
Yeah, it's all about this idea of really stifling dissent. And it's why, you know, you hear all of these things sometimes, the misinformation that you hear about Marianne, or even sometimes the work of New York City retirees. I'll tell you what, the very first time I spoke to Marianne, she can tell you, James Eternal was saying, you've got to listen to her. She's really on the forefront here of this Medicare Advantage fight. And I said, well, I'm hearing she's anti-union. And she might recall the conversation we had on the Zoom. And that's the very first thing I asked Marianne. Marianne, I'm hearing you're anti-union. Are you anti-union? And she gave me her resume, and she said, absolutely not. I am as pro-union as they come. And you know me, I went back and I started Googling, and before you know it, I was able to really be convinced. And over this the last few years, we've been able to form a very good friendship. But again, we really need to continue this fight. Whatever New York City retirees is doing, we need to support. But we need to also continue this fight that, you know what, those in union leadership, we've trusted them for a very long time, and a lot of us are feeling betrayed. Sunshine is important. The transparency is important. Dissent is important. Challenging the talking points and quote unquote facts that they share with us. All of that is important. We are not going to sit down and shut up.
No.
Good. You know, I heard different things about Marianne when I first started talking about her to people I knew in the UFT, and they're getting fewer and fewer because they fire everybody who I like. I mean, maybe I'm the bad luck for them. But the first thing I heard about Marianne is that she's ultra right wing. She supports Donald Trump and all that stuff, and she is anti-union, of course. And when I looked at her online, I found no evidence of her being neither right nor left nor anything. But then, in the beginning of the last campaign, I believe, they put up a picture of her with Moore, who they were vilifying for being too left, with some kind of Palestinian thing. I don't remember what it was, but they'll say she's too right. They'll say she's too left. They'll say she's anti-union. Mogul has called us anti-union, you know?
Yep.
I went to an executive board meeting to defend Amy Arundel, who had been moved from Queens UFT. And Amy Arundel was a great leader of Queens UFT. I mean, so I won't speak of the person who she followed, but she was great. You know, I used to have grievances that moldered for years, and when Amy became the leader, James Vasquez would call me and ask me about this grievance and that grievance, and she was a remarkable person, would work for you, would help me, would help anybody, whether or not you were on her side. And that's not the feeling that I get from Michael Mogul. You know, he likes you when you like him. And when you don't like him, he will say you're spouting fairy tales, you spout conspiracy theories, and he will, in fact, say you are an enemy of the union.
Yep.
An enemy of the union. Like, I'm an enemy of the union. And Leroy Barr got up and said, shun them. I mean, and we are UFT members. And if you go to the DA and you say the UFT did this, Mogul will say you are the UFT. But if you stand up and say you're the UFT, he'll sue you.
Make it make sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
It absolutely doesn't make any sense. I remember shortly after that, Daniel, I had just landed at Somos, and I turned my phone on and my phone lit up. Do you remember this day?
Yes.
It was right around when we first started to talk.
Yeah.
And you had said something to me, and I said, do I need to defend myself on this? And you said, no, we're the smart teachers. We already did our investigation, and we know that's not you, what they were blaming me to be. So it's like whatever's convenient for them, because they can't win an argument, right? Like we've always said, if they don't have the facts on their side, they're going to attack you, and they'll malign you and smear you. And that's what they've done in every situation, from starting with us through you to Amy, because they can't address the issues. Because if they could, like me or not, they would have come out to support protecting their own members, and they're not. That's what I said to Randy a couple of weeks ago. I said, you don't have to like me. You don't even have to like our legislation. Just don't fight it because it's the right thing to do. Meanwhile, she'd spent an hour on the phone with me giving me accolades in all of the work that I have done with this organization over the last 5 years, and then didn't want to work with us and the legislation because UFT colleagues of hers had allegedly given her videos that I had done well before she and I started to speak, most likely, that would have painted Michael Mulgrew in a bad light. And I'm like, well, Michael Mulgrew paints himself in a bad light. I just regurgitate them. But they don't like being called out on that. And unfortunately, that's what puts us in these situations is we have to hold leadership accountable. If we don't, then we have a tyrant. And we can't have that because that's why retirees are still battling these battles is because someone abused their authority and no one put them in check. And I'm not going to let that happen because I would really like to have my retirement back. I don't know about you, Arthur. I would like to be retired again. And, not have to fight these evil people all the time. It's just frustrating. I don't want to deal with politicians. I don't want to deal with, union leaders that they've cornered the market on intelligence when they haven't. I don't mind an intelligent conversation sometimes, but I don't mind a good debate, but I don't like being used and abused. And that's where we end up being, which is why this year we're saying like, we want to push this legislation through because I'm tired of this. This is complete and pure disrespect of unionists, of the union movement, and what unionists earned and paid for during their tenures. You shouldn't have to break your ass in a classroom all of your life and then say they'll give you a plaque and a hug and a book and say, go into retirement and enjoy everything that you've earned, your pension, your health care. See you at the next RTC meeting. And then, oh, by the way, sorry, I'm going to charge you more copays because I need to come up with funding for whatever their next pet project is. That shouldn't be the way because now they just put retirees into a major affordability crisis that they know that their COLA isn't even keeping up with. And now you just made that 10 times worse. And you're just hoping that there's not another pain in the ass named Marianne out there that wants to fight them back. We shouldn't do that because if they could do that to us today, they're going to do that to them tomorrow.
And the co-pays is a slippery slope because we were paying $0 forever and it's at 15, but who knows where it will be next year. I mean, it could become prohibitive. Now Daniel has to pay $100 to go to an urgent care, I know. Yes. And a lot of retirees can't do that. A lot of in-service can't do that.
Well, and where was the unions this whole time that negotiated all of these health plan designs, not recognizing that Emblem had a ghost mental health network?
Yeah, and it's not the first time, right? I wrote an article on The Wire at educators.nyc, thewire.educators.nyc is where you can read it, that talks about their history. Emblem did this in 2011, 2014. Eric Schneiderman, the AG at that time, was able to get a settlement. And then almost immediately, within 4 or 5 years, they did it again. And since the pandemic, which was really the time of a mental health crisis here in the United States, folks were trying to, and I can tell you in my own family, we had a situation in my own family, and I could not find a therapist or psychiatrist on this beacon network that they had designed through Emblem that was local. And here we are going through a really hard time and not being able to find someone locally. We were able to finally go into a walk-in situation at LIJ. But I will tell you that a lot of folks starting in about 2019, 2020, were going into those directories and not finding anyone in that network. I understand up to maybe even 80% of the people in that directory or the providers in that directory were no longer with Emblem after a while. And yet Emblem was saying, here is, our network. And it was also a selling point. We saw this as a selling point with the NYC PPO, this new self-funded plan that somehow, with Emblem now, in charge of the local down 13 counties, that their network is among the best, and that they were also going to infuse it with United Healthcare. But I don't trust United Healthcare's network, because I believe that's a ghost network too. There's names that are in there multiple times, offices that are in there multiple times. I think Marianne had shared with me that even the building itself is considered a medical provider. And so I don't know if you've ever been treated by a building. And so some of these networks are inflated, and we saw that with Emblem Health. And you're talking about something that, for whatever reason in this country, we somehow feel like our teeth, our vision, and our mental health are not part of healthcare, right? And yet they are very much part of our healthcare. There are even federal now mental health parity laws that say that, what, they've got to treat mental health care in the same way that they would treat any medical condition, and also make sure that the health providers are paying out in the same way. And I would say in that article, not only did I discuss the ghost network that Emblem Health had, but at the very same time, with the 2014 deal and all of the healthcare savings, there was some type of settlement between the MLC and the city.
Right.
And it was something to the tune of almost $140 million that the city had to pay, because they weren't keeping up with the mental health parity requirements that they had. And the MLC had sued, and before you know it, there was an agreement, and that money was supposed to go to the MLC, and hopefully they would use it to try to improve the infrastructure with mental health. Do you know what the MLC did as part of the healthcare savings? Everything along with Medicare Advantage, they took that $140 million that was supposed to maybe either stay in the stabilization fund, or the MLC could have decided, you know what, let's bring it back to our welfare funds, and let's make sure that our members get the mental health care that they need. They took that $140 million settlement, and they just gave it back to the city as healthcare savings. That to me is unconscionable, that here you are, people are suffering, whether it be a special education teacher who has gone through a divorce, whether it be someone at DC 37, or that is going through a mental health crisis. You see FDNY and EMS and police officers. We know about their suicide rates and some of the issues that they're facing. Here you have the MLC taking money that should have gone and should have been reinvested in our mental health, and here they are giving it back to the city and saying, you do whatever you want with it. You could put it back into the treasury. And so again, it all boils down to, it is time. And we're starting to see that with NYC retirees. I know that Arthur's doing that work. I know I'm doing that work, that we expose what's going on. But with that, we know that we are going to be attacked as either being anti-union, and if they have to come up with legal actions against us, we're starting to see that that's something that they're willing to do just to shut us up.
Let's be fair, though, here, Daniel. The fact is that UFT in particular is very good at giving back to the city. They've been doing it for 21 years, since that 2005 contract.
Randy,
if I get a letter in my file that says I threw a cheeseburger at a student and I didn't do it, I can't grieve that letter. They gave that back to the city. If I don't know, if I'm sick of doing lunchroom duty, well, too bad for me, because they gave it back to the city. They said they got us a raise, but they didn't. They just extended our day and called it a raise. We got paid for being at our job longer. If you work at Burger King 8 hours instead of 7, you will get more money. And that's not generally thought of as a raise, but Randy protected it this way. And Randy was particularly good at giving back, because if firefighters or police save in their equivalent of the TDA, they get 8.25% back, while we only get 7. And that's because one of the things Randy gave away in 2005 were 2 days in August, and people hated her for it. So she swapped a whole lot of our money for those 2 days. She's really good at giving stuff back. They sold us out. All of us retirees, they gave up our Medicare so they get a crappy raise for rank and file. They
Yeah.
don't think that cost of living is something we should get without givebacks. So they gave us up. They're
Yeah.
really good at giving back.
So
You
here's
have
your
to give them
website,
credit.
and you're asking everyone to sign this petition.
Yes, that's the first thing they can do is just scroll down a little bit. We talk about where we are right now as far as needing chapter amendments. There's if you want just some explainers, but if you scroll down, there's the petition. That's the first thing we want you to do, to sign the petition. But there's also a couple other action steps we want you to take. There you're going to put in your information so that way you can send an email. We set up an email template. The first option is to send to the governor's legislative affairs office. You can also send it to the key sponsors. The template is there. You can edit that template. If you move up just a little bit, Marianne, where it says edit, if you're not comfortable with the language that's there, or you just want to personalize it a little bit more, there's an edit button, and then you send out that email. The other thing we're asking you to do is go to the online form right there in the yellow banner that's there. You kind of passed it a little bit, Marianne. Also go to the online form for the governor, and you can copy and paste the message, or you can put your own message. That will take you to the governor's page that you can send an online message to her. And then lastly, we really want to start bombarding them, flooding them with some phone calls. You can call Kathy Hochul's office. But again, we're asking you to ask to be transferred to the Legislative Affairs Office and tell them that we need an amendment. We need an amendment for safe harbor, for union dissent and union democracy. We do not want to see unions be impersonated. We don't want to see malicious or deceptive fraud, but we also want to make sure that we are not told to sit down and shut up. And so we want to make sure that there is a protective clause inside, or amendment inside of this legislation. And so please also make a phone call. And there is also some historical context there on the bottom about examples where the UFT has actually gone after UFT members, Arthur being one, myself with UFTmembers.org, and other reform caucuses that have been attacked by threats of legal action, whether they be More UFT, ADC UFT, and others, saying that they are impersonating the union, that they're causing confusion, that they are interfering with representation. And so I've tried to spend some time to really give everyone some information about the historical context and why we need these protections. And so please visit the site. You're able to take action there. And we're hoping that we can at least have our voices heard by Kathy Hochul, who really is the person at this moment that has the decision. Is she going to veto this? Is she going to hold it until there's a chapter amendment, or is she just going to pass it and ignore our voices? We want our voices heard. Please keep up the pressure. I know that Marianne gives you lots and lots of homework, so we're going to give you an extra credit bonus assignment. Please go to our site, unionvoices.educatorsofnyc, and also sign this petition, send out the emails, and also make the phone calls this coming week.
So I'm not giving them homework. This is their homework for you.
Wonderful.
So that they can do most of this, started over the weekend and then do it starting again Monday. And then we can post it again on Monday and put it in the newsletter. I put out today's newsletter, but I'll put out another one next week. That way they can have this as well. So for all of you too, that we are still trying to get that information, just, birth, how old you are and gender, just so that we can get a good slice of our population to give to the insurance company, so that we can hopefully present you with a few different products that maybe you would like to have. And so please, like, if you get our newsletter, it went out today. If you registered for it and for some reason you didn't get it, please check your spam or your junk file. The link is in there for you to actually do that. It's just 2 questions. We don't need to know your name or anything. There's no way to collect that. We don't see anything other than those answers that we ask on the petition. And that's really all we need. And if you can do that, because we only had like a couple hundred people do that when I did this 2 weeks ago, that's really all we're looking for. So this is your homework for this week. And thank you everyone for supporting what we're doing and listening to today. And I'm sure Dan and Arthur appreciate you paying attention to this latest issue that has come before them with legislation. So while our state bill isn't really going anywhere for this term, you now have this bill that you could focus on in the meantime. This does go before the governor, and then she would have to sign it, but she has until December to do that. So if she doesn't do anything, I believe the bill basically does die, right? It doesn't go anywhere. But you can, of course, support it. Just ask for the amendment that Daniel and Arthur were talking about in changing the language to make sure that it does protect and preserve your individual speech and dissent within the organizations that you're in. And then support it going forward and let them know that that's the concern. Dan did a really great job on that website that I've been dropping into the chat to walk you through all of it so that you could see why they're saying what they are. So, and giving you speech, a little bit of a, what do you call it, a script to use when you make those calls or emails. So.
And Marianne, the wonderful thing, I put a lot of work in this week with some of the coding there, but I think it creates a platform that even New York City retirees can start using for other campaigns, including the city council campaign. Cool. I know that we've been using Action Network, but there's also some things going on with Action Network that sometimes make it more difficult to implement. But you're welcome, New York City retirees, to use that platform and make it your own so that we're able to have something that belongs to us, but at the same time, let our legislators and the policymakers and decision makers know that we mean business. These are our unions. These are our streets.
And our retirees.
That's right.
Well, very cool. Is there anything else you guys want to share with us before we call it a night?
I just want to thank everybody for watching and listening. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Marianne, for having us. We appreciate it.
It's like old times. I miss you guys. Although I talk to you every day, but not here.
Every single day we talk. Marianne, thank you for having us. I know you wanted to keep it short, and I know you're not feeling well. Right. So healing vibes. Please feel better.
And even though you're not feeling well, you look good, and that's really the important thing.
Filters.
We want to thank you for everything that you do, New York City retirees, to everyone that's listening, and to you, Marianne. Thank you.
All right. Wonderful, guys. Thank you so much. So I will put on our social media pages their socials for the Substack that they posted, as well as the link. I've been dropping them all in the chat as well. So you should see them on our Facebook, the public page, as well as in our YouTube. So make sure you go and look there. But I will also put them in the follow-up newsletter so that you'd have access there. And remember, I did send out newsletters today. If you don't see it, check spam or junk and make sure you put us in your email box, in your contacts address book, so that when we do come in, that you do find us. And the emails will come from retirees@nycretirees.org. So you guys have a great weekend. Thanks for entertaining our panel today. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Arthur. And you guys have a great weekend. I love you, and I'll see you Monday on the radio. Ciao.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Don't speak what you don't understand. The truth is not in your command. Don't shout about what you think is fake. The your tongue.